I've just come out of my potting shed, and that's the place where all the work's done in the garden, the real planning, the background work. But I'd like to welcome you to this new programme, all about our own television garden here in the southwest. And for me it's really satisfying, because it's you, over the years, that have constantly asked for a garden that's applicable to our soil, our situations and our climate, using our types of plants. And we want it easy and we want it simple, because we want you to enjoy your garden. I'm not going to show you the garden just yet. It's going to be right down there in front of me, and it's under construction now. So we'll just go back to September and we'll have a look at what was happening in September. The sun's shining at the moment, and it's a grand day to be starting this very exciting project. For me anyway, the thought of having to start creating with you our own southwest television garden, it seems too good to be true. But if I kneel down for a moment and just show you one or two things on the plan, you'll see what fun we're going to have together. I've just walked along this path here, down there, and I'm actually kneeling here on the plan. Just in front of me is the soft fruit plot where we'll have our raspberries and our strawberries. Just behind me there is going to be the top fruit plot with dwarfing apples and dwarfing pears. And just behind me again, further up, the vegetable plot on a 3-year crop rotation basis. So we're going to be doing things properly, you see. And right at the top there, a tiny greenhouse like the amateur will usually have, with a coal frame and a herb plot along the side. And all of the plots are typical of what we will find in most gardens today, around about 12 feet by 14 feet, just tiny plots, and an area for future projects. So there we are, that's a television garden. But the most important part, so far as I'm concerned, is this. All gardeners spend all their life getting soil on their boots and soil on their hands, because that's what it's all about. And if you want to be successful in your garden, you've really got to know what your soil is like. And the best way to find out, funnily enough, is to dig a nice big hole. In this instance, Tim has dug a hole 1 metre by 1 metre. And we call it a profile pit, because we can see the profile of the soil. And it tells us that the builder has come along on the top of our old car park soil and put about a 9-inch layer of lovely, good topsoil, crumbly topsoil, good stuff. Down below here, we've got around about 18 inches of topsoil again that's been compressed by the builder. And this is the soil itself. Once again, sandy and it's crumbly, but it's good stuff. Down below that, we can see the layer now of subsoil. Plenty of clay there, but there's lots of stones as well. So all in all, the summary tells us, when we look at it, that we've got a soil that's free draining, it's nice and crumbly, so it'll warm up quickly, and we should grow early crops. And we shouldn't have a lot of problems. It's better really than most of you will have. But one important thing we've got to find out as well is what the acidity of the soil is like, whether it's acid or alkaline. And professionally, the commercial man would use a kit like this. Costs a little bit of money. But the amateur gardener, well, he can buy a little kit like this, and he can test the soil for its lime content, for nitrogen, phosphates and potash, whether it's deficient or whether he's got too much. And it's absolutely important that we do this. Definitely that we find out whether it's acid or alkaline, because some plants like acid soil, some plants like alkaline soil. And we just get a little test tube, and in the test tube we will put some soil, and we just add the relevant mixture. And for our topsoil, we took a tube earlier and put some soil in, and we have a colour indicator chart like this, where we compare the two colours. And those of you who've got black and white sets, we can tell you that it's a nice green colour comparing to this here, and we know that we've got a neutral soil, and we're lucky again. We're not going to have a lot of problems. But one thing more we've got to do with this pit. We've got to wait until it rains. We've got to watch it fill up with water, and then we got to wait for dry weather. And after 24 hours of dry weather, we come and look at it again, and if the water's gone down, we're happy. If the water's still at the top, then we're in trouble and we've got drainage problems. But don't forget, dig a hole. It's the best way to find out about your soil. We've dealt with the soil, the important part, but let's have a look at the plot in general and see what we really have got to deal with. If we come over here to the future development section, I can see we've got some lovely brambles to deal with right away. Plenty of weeds, plenty of stones down there, and plenty of hard work. But no problem, we'll do it. But just there I can see a nice old apple tree amongst the weeds, and it's full of apples, so we're not going to get rid of that. We're going to keep it and try and make something of it. You don't waste anything at all when you create a new garden. Even the stones can be useful when we'll be able to see that. But if we look over here and walk over to the plot where the top fruit's going to go, we can find this little whip, this little prunus, a flowering cherry, right in the middle of our plot. So that's got to come up, but it'll be saved and it'll be trained, and we'll plant it somewhere else in the garden and we'll make use of it. But the most important part, we've dealt with the soil, is what's on top of the soil. And if I get down, I can see we were lucky. All we've got is grass and vegetation, and it's reasonably level. It's been cut, and then you could use a herbicide if you wanted to clear it all away. But what you're going to have to do, and there's no dodging it, is some hard work. You're going to have to do some digging, and you're going to have to do some forking. And if you're going to do that, you've got to do it slowly, a little bit at a time, and it's easy. And you want good tools and equipment. If I step down into this trench, we thought we got a new garden, so we've got new tools. And we buy the best we possibly can. Cheap tools, no good at all. Get the best you can possibly afford. Not always the lightest, the heaviest is sometimes the best, and you'll be all right. This is not like my old granddad's, mind you, nice, sharp and shiny. Some hard work and sweat's got to go into making these silvery, shiny and sharp. But it'll come in time. And if you can see, we've taken out a trench here, and all the soil from the trench we've put over there. And it's the start of double digging. We're going to try, if we can, when the trench gets to the end, put the soil into there, and we're back where we started. But what we're going to try and do is improve this subsoil. We're going to put a layer of organic material on the top of this trench, and I'm going to fork it all in. So I'm improving the lower level, the lower spit. And it's just hard work now. Lots of stones, so we're going to sweat a bit about it all. Having done that, the dead or dying vegetation on the top, got to chop it like that, skim it off, put the turb with all its lovely fibres on the top there, push it in hard, turn it over, break it up and put it on the top, chop, cut, skim it again and put it on the top, grass side down. And it's hard work, and we'll do it like that. So what we're really doing is slowly, a little bit at a time, digging our soil to a double depth of the spade, 2 spits deep, and putting organic material in at the same time. Tim and I, we've got a lot of work on our hands if we're going to make this into a garden, but we're going to enjoy ourselves. I hope you'll enjoy us watching us do it, so I better get down to doing a little bit more work. Nice big stone there. Well, it's a muddy, wet October day, but it's exciting just the same. And as you can see, there's a dramatic change taking place in our television garden. We've had to have the builders in to level the site for the sake of the cameras. But we did move the topsoil out of the way first, but it's left us with this muddy, wet, compacted mass. But this is the vegetable plot, the first plot we're going to work on so far as manures and fertilizers are concerned. And as soon as the surface is dry enough, we'll start to dig and put in our manures. But what sort of manures, that's the thing. What are we going to use? Well, over here, we've got just a little selection for you. The one that we all know about, the good old farmyard manure, bulky organic material we call it. And if you're going to handle it like I do, and it doesn't worry me as a gardener, because I've had my tetanus shots, I've had my injections, and every gardener should have an injection for tetanus. But that material is going to go in this section here, bulky organic material. You could, if you want, purchase quite cheaply spent mushroom compost, organic material in bulk. You can even buy bags of processed horse manure, good material, or even a bale of shamrock or moss peat, organic material again. But the best material of all is the thing you get for nothing. This costs you money, and that's garden compost, the thing we throw away. Vegetable waste, cabbages, tea leaves, even grass mowings, leaf mowings, things from the road, anything you can make yourself into compost, that's the stuff to use, bulky material. But you say, what about the granular fertilizers? You know, we buy a lot of those. National Growmore, it's still a good artificial fertilizer. We've got 7 parts of nitrogen, 7 parts of phosphate, and 7 parts of potash. Artificial fertilizer. And we could scatter that around if we wanted. But that just feeds the plants. Does nothing for the soil at all. It requires water. And when you use this material, the bulky manure, in a dry period, your crops will grow. If you just use artificials in a dry period, they won't grow. But the two together, then you get maximum results. And that's what we're going to be trying to do in our television garden. But we've got to remember as well the acidity, the pH of the soil, and some crops require lime as well. That's very important. But over there, well, we've taken out a trench again. We're going to put this bulky material in there, and you can see all the rubble, all the stones, just like your garden, that we've taken out of our trench. And Tim has forked over the bottom, and now he's going to fork in this bulky material to make that subsoil really come to life. So it's over to you, Tim, really, to do the hard work. Really fork it in there, Tim. You know, it's not an easy job, but make a meal of it. Got to try and get it in there. Tip some soil over the top of it. It's not an easy job, but if you tip a little bit of soil with it after you've done it. And while Tim's digging in that manure, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about the plot itself. We're going to use a 3-year rotation, so we're dividing the plot into 3 sections. And the first third of the section, which Tim is working on now, is the plot that's going to have all this bulky organic material for the crops like the peas, the beans, the leeks and the onions. They love this fresh manure, freshly dug soil. The centre section will have artificial fertilizers with it, and lime added, and in there will go our brassicas, the cabbages, the cauliflowers, and the broccoli. And the lime is to keep the club root away and keep disease at bay. And the last third of the plot, well, this section will just have artificial fertilizer in it, and that'll be for the root crops, the carrots and the parsnips. And each year, we will move the organic material along the plot. We'll rotate it, a 3-year fertility cycle, to make sure our crops grow and that our soil is gradually being replenished with this vital humus that will make your plants grow. But there's one more little thing I'd like to show you that's really exciting, that's developed in the last few weeks, and that's over here. Our greenhouse has arrived. Here's our tiny little greenhouse. Red cedar, glass to the ground, so that means we can grow plants right from the ground upwards. We'll have no problems about tomatoes being drawn. And by being red cedar, we'll only have to treat it once a year with a cedar treatment, no real painting, it's nice and easy. But the real thing that we want to find out is which way are we going to face our greenhouses, and this is very, very important. Now the greenhouse will actually be sited here, and the garden frame will be there with a little herb plot over there. But our greenhouse is going to run east and west. And the advantages of running east and west are that you get all the winter sunlight when the sun is low, so you get the winter light. But in the summer, you will have a sunny side for all the crops that love the sunshine, and you will also on this side have a shady side for all the crops that like the shade. You've got the best of both worlds, and it's a professional way of doing things as well. Well, here we are, back in April, and this is where the greenhouse was lying in sections. But the next time we got out in the garden was in March, and a lot of constructional work was taking place then. It's the second week in March, and it's a cold, raw, bitter morning. But our garden has steadily developed despite the bad weather. All the cultivations are carried out, and they've been carried out deep and well, right down to the subsoil, with plenty of manure put in there, so we shouldn't have any problems for the future. And over here on the right, the most important part of the garden, the compost bin area. And we're going to have 4 different types of compost, 4 sections, and one of them is definitely going to be seaweed, because we're thinking of the West Country and the gardeners down here. Seaweed is important. And just over there, well, it's looking a bit of a mess at the moment, but that's going to be the wild garden area. We're going to grow wild flowers and natural flowers and shade plants so that school children can come along and see what they can do in a little private part of their own garden using nature's own flowers. Over here in the soft fruit plot, the fruit has been planted. We got the black currant, and it's been cut down, right down hard to the ground to 2 inches. Just over here, we have the red currant, and the red currant has been cut back halfway to an outward facing bud. And just along here, we have our 2 gooseberries, and these are going to be cut back halfway again to an upward and outward facing bud. There it is, upward and outward facing. And just over there, we have the raspberries, and they've been cut back to 1 foot. What we're really doing is saying we're not going to have any fruit this year. We're going to have lots of fruit next year. It's formative pruning, shaping a foundation for the future. In our top fruit plot, our 4 apple trees and our 2 pear trees, they're well and truly planted, and they're on semi-dwarfing rootstock. This particular one has been cut back and pruned to look like the pyramid to the right of the diagram. And over here, this apple tree, it's still got to be pruned back. The leader will be cut back by a half, the laterals will be cut back by a half to an outward facing bud again, and in the summer we'll show you how to train them to form the pyramid shape, to make a dwarf pyramid apple tree. Over here we've got our apples and pears, and they're going to be grown as cordons. That means they're going to be on a single stem, on a dwarfing rootstock this time to keep them down, and we haven't got any special plants. We've got them just like you would from a garden centre, so we're not doing anything different at all. And what will happen, as they develop and grow, the fruit will stay close to the stem because of our summer pruning, and eventually, in 3 or 4 years' time, they'll gradually grow to reach right up to this top wire, round about 9 to 12 feet high. And the fruit, as we say, will be all along the stem, lovely and juicy. In our vegetable plot, we've had the cloches on for 2 to 3 weeks to warm and dry out the soil for the early crops, good early crops. Whilst we're in this end of the garden, you remember our old friend the apple tree, the one we hoped to save because it looked as though it would have good fruit. Well, on close inspection we found that it was in a pretty sorry state. But just the same, it was in the way. It didn't really fit in with our plans, so, well, it had to go. Because down along the side, we're going to have our terrace garden area, 2 different levels in nice curves to match a curved wall, and it will lead eventually right down to our wild garden at the bottom. Lots of fun and exciting as well. It's a bitter, freezing cold day, but the greenhouse is up at last and I'm inside, and we're actually growing plants at the same time. The good gardener, he doesn't take any chances, he starts early. So here we've got our early peas, little marvel, 4 to a pot. They're going to go underneath our cloches. And just here we've got our early potatoes, Sutton's foremost, well and truly sprouted, short and sturdy, because they've been hardened off. They, within a week or a fortnight, are going to take a chance, they're going in the ground. And here, early parsley, sowed in little trays, and we've got a lesson to learn. Bright sunlight has scorched through the glass the seedling leaves. A lesson to be learned. Put some shading up. So we've got to learn lessons, just like you know. Here we are, back in April, and the sun's shining. And up to now we've been talking about the things that keep us alive, vegetables and fruit. But for me, and for most of us, we've got to have a reason for living. And that means trees and shrubs and flowers as well. So along the side of the garden here, held back by a retaining wall to our terrace garden, we've created a mixed border, and it's in its early stages. We've marked it out in pockets roughly with sand to give us a rough guide, and we're actually going to put in there herbaceous plants, some shrubs with scented leaves like lavender and rosemary, and some hardy annuals. And we could take this herbaceous perennial for a start. Iris pallida variegata, lovely pointed leaf, variegated all the year round, and when you get the flowers, lovely blue flowers, they're a bonus on the top. And down there, we've got sedum spectabile autumn joy. It looks soft and it looks succulent, but it's perfectly tough, and here in the southwest it thrives. The flowers, when they come, the flat heads of pink, they will attract the bees and the insects, and they can be dried off for floral arrangements. But you don't need a lot of money to have a good garden. We've left little vacant pockets, and when this soil is well prepared, and we'll show you how to do that, we will sow during the month of April directly into the open ground hardy annual seeds. They're only cheap, about 15-20p a packet for lots of seed, and you all know them: annual chrysanthemum, love in the mist, nasturtium and clarkia, ideal subjects for putting directly into the open ground. So it's going to look really super, it's going to be colourful, and it's going to be a reason for living. I've come now right round the outside of the garden, behind the straining wires for the climbing fruits and the cordon apples. And that means some way or other we've got to have a protection for the wind. Wind's our problem, as you know, in the southwest. And if you can filter it, not block it with a solid barrier, then you're on the way to success. And it's often forgotten that it's just as important to protect the blossoms on your fruit trees from the wind as it is from the frost if you want lovely juicy apples. So we're going to plant a hedge along here, and we've chosen a conifer that can be clipped, and it's the golden form of Leylandii, Cupressocyprus castellum. And we know we can restrict it to about 6 or 7 feet in all measurements, and it will filter the wind for us. And in and around the hedge we're going to have an informal shrub screen, concentrating once again on foliage so that we'll have interest and colour all the year round. And we're going to pick plants that will grow well in the southwest and are special to us here in the southwest. And we can't forget the genus Pittosporum. We all know the ordinary green one that was used for cut foliage to sell away in the market, but there's a silver form, Pittosporum tenuifolium garnetii, lovely and colourful silver foliage. And if we plant nearby to it another pittosporum, once again tenuifolium, but this time purpureum. Pittosporum tenuifolium purpureum. Lovely delicate green shoots when they appear, and they gradually change to these lovely chocolate foliage. And if you look very, very closely, highly scented, little purple flowers with yellow anthers in the centre. Really super. And once again, we can choose a pittosporum. This time, the species is Tobira, and it's green in the ciliails, but this one is Pittosporum Tobira variegatum, the silver variegated form. And you've got 3 super plants for a shrub border in a small garden or a large garden here in the southwest. But there's nothing easy about our television garden. We haven't played any tricks. We're doing just the same as you would at home, and we're going to show you our mistakes and our failures and our problems. We're not going to hide anything. And just look at this soil. If you can call it soil in this area, stony, shaly, and it's real hard work. And that leads me to somebody who really does all the hard work in this garden, and that's Tim. Tim, it is going to be hard work, and you've done a lot of hard work already. Have you learnt any lessons? That's the thing.
Well, I haven't done digging all the week. I do some digging and go and do some construction work, some building, and some jobs in the greenhouse, in the shed. There's lots to be done around the garden. It's not just digging, well, as you know, but it keeps the interest if you vary it a bit, and you don't get too tired as well.
Well, you know, Tim, I'm the old man and you're the young gardener. I think, you know, lots of young gardeners would be interested to know how did you actually start gardening then?
Well, I think I started off as a garden pest, really. In Dad's garden, he used to knock all his standard fuchsia heads off with the football. But eventually, I got round to growing fuchsias and other plants rather than destroying them. And the interest has grown from there.
And I know, Tim, that before you came here to take part in this garden and try and really work on the studio grounds, that you have got your OND at Cannington, so you must have had to study hard as well for that.
Oh, well, that's a different type of hard work, and it's nice after 3 years at Cannington to come out and do some real graft.
Tim, we're going to have to plant these caswellens properly. How are you going to go about it yourself?
Well, the Leylandii hasn't got a very strong root system, and well, as this winter has shown, we get some really strong winds in the southwest. So it's important that we prepare the ground well so that the roots can get down really deep and get a good firm grip.
So we've really got to dig that subsoil.
Oh, yes.
A little bit at a time.
Of course.
That's all for now, but next week we'll be sowing seeds in the greenhouse, sowing them outside, making hanging baskets, and actually planting shrubs. So it's good night for now, and enjoy your gardening.